Yo, what is up guys, it's Ghost here, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a pretty big patch to go over for Stormgate, probably one of the biggest patches yet with a lot of the largest improvements that we've seen for the game as of yet as well, and it looks like the team at Frost Giant are slowly starting to turn things around. So I've been getting my feet wet a little bit over the past 24 hours, I've managed to get in a few games, and there is a lot of stuff that has changed in this patch. So first of all, there's like a completely new lighting model, there's a day-night system that they're trying out in one of the maps, there are new visual effects, in particular explosions I've noticed on the Vanguard buildings. They're extremely satisfying to watch go up in flames now whenever you take out a Vanguard player. There's been a big sound pass, performance is a lot better as well. We are going to delve into all of that, so without further ado, if you guys do enjoy the content here on the channel, make sure you're subscribed to keep up to date with everything Stormgate and indeed other RTS games in the future. Just so happens that we haven't really had too much RTS news as of late, at least not for Battle Aces, Stormgate and Zero Space, so it's been a little while since I made a video on the channel, but I am very happy to be back. So the first and most obvious thing you are going to realize here is that there is a completely different lighting model. I'm not sure what wizardry they've really done here, but the textures look a lot sharper, the contrast between the shadows and the light looks way better. There are even god rays coming up over some of the pools here. I can't pinpoint each and every little change that they've made, but I think you will agree, most likely if the last time you saw Stormgate was maybe the last time I made a video or somebody else, that the game looks vastly improved. As I mentioned earlier as well, there are a lot of new visual effects, in particular the explosions on, for example, the Vanguard buildings. I haven't had time to play too much yet, so I'm sure I haven't encountered all of these effects, but some of the things they showed off in the official video that came out of Frost Giant Games yesterday was things like the Dark Prophecy spell for the Animancers. There's just a lot of really nice extra eye candy, and I feel like this has brought the aesthetic level of the game up to another level. It's maybe not quite where it needs to be yet to catch the attention of everybody, but I think for those vocal people who voiced their critique on the game saying that it looked like a mobile game, saying that it looked too cartoony, I can only assume that those people are hopefully going to be happy with these changes, and it's just nice to see Frost Giant tackling that directly. Now, all of the soundscape in the game has been somewhat changed. They've normalized all of the levels, so that was another big critique when the game first released into early access, is that a lot of sounds in the game and the music and stuff like that were way just out of whack compared to other sounds in the game, and it made it quite a chore to play, quite grating on the ears. So the sound has had a big pass now to sort of normalize the noise across the board, although, you know, it's not being flattened completely, there is still going to be a lot of dynamics in there, and they've also redone a lot of the sounds for certain things. Again, the Dark Prophecy animation there for the Animancer, and lots of other stuff. I'm not going to be able to go over absolutely every sound that's changed in the video, and to be quite frank, I don't even know what they are myself, but you will definitely hear it if you play the game. They're also tinkering around with some new effects on a couple of the maps that they're trying out at the moment. One of them is a day-night system, I guess kind of like we had back in Warcraft 3, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a day-night system in that game, although it's been a long time, probably 2 decades at this point since I played that one, so I may be off there completely, but I seem to remember a little dial at the top with like a moon and a sun on it, depending on the time of day or night, and that has now been brought into Stormgate in one of the maps. So it will start off, I think, as daytime, then it transitions into dusk, and then a werewolf howls, and all of a sudden it's nighttime. Pretty cool touch there. And in another one of them, you've got this really harsh weather, rain lashing the whole map, maybe even some thunder or something in there. It just adds an extra little aesthetic, and I think dynamic weather could be something to add into the maps. Again, it's not going to be like the be-all end-all of Stormgate, but it is something that adds a little bit there to the atmosphere. Now, the next thing I want to mention here, and I haven't seen this in the patch notes, so I don't know if this came in 0.3 or maybe 0.2 or even before that, but performance for me is far better now than it ever has been, at least when I run the game on DirectX 12. So if you guys stop playing the game because the performance was terrible, I don't blame you, to be honest, because, you know, sometimes in co-op or a replay or even just a 1 versus 1, I could be getting down to like sub 20 FPS, and really at that point it became somewhat unplayable. But now, as you can see in the top right corner there, I'm getting pretty insane frames. Now, disclaimer, I am running on a pretty beastly rig. I've got like a 5090 in here, and a 9800 X3D, so it couldn't really be any better, but I'm still pretty impressed here with the performance. And also the new DLSS model, DLSS 4 from Nvidia, I think is making a big difference here. And I'm going to throw a comparison up on screen that I took really for myself, but I thought this may interest you guys, of the difference between the TSR anti-aliasing model versus DLAA, so this is Nvidia's anti-aliasing but at native resolution, and then the quality preset on DLSS, which is apparently, according to the UI, rendering the game at 65% resolution and then upscaling it with AI. And I can't really tell a difference between the three of these. If I stop and look, I've zoomed in on it, I've really spent some time, I just really can't see much of a noticeable difference, but you'll notice the difference between TSR and a DLSS at quality is 100 extra frames per second. So that's pretty impressive. Okay, jumping into the menus for a second, there have been a lot of changes to hotkeys and unit control groups. So first of all, in the hotkeys menu here, you're going to notice that they've changed spacebar to now be unit group 10 here on the keyboard, as well as 0. So now instead of your select all army key being on space, this is going to select control group 10. And I'm going to show you guys why that's important in a moment. You're going to notice as well that you can also set control groups on the spacebar for unit group 10 there as well. You can add to control group, you can also steal from control group here, and they have also added a hotkey somewhere, if I can find it. There it is. Remove from all control groups. This is going to be great. So if you press Alt and the tilde key, that's the one just to the left of the number 1 on your keyboard, it will actually remove that unit from all of your control groups. Now, if we come back here, there is now a new section called control groups, and this is absolutely fantastic. So what you can do is automate which units enter which control groups depending on your race, depending on what game mode you're playing, what hero you're playing in co-op, for example. So let's say I'm playing as Vanguard and I want all of my scouts to go in control group number 1. We highlight number 1, click on the scout, click confirm, and that's it. Every time you build a scout, it's now going to go in this control group. So you could, for example, put all of your melee units on control group 1, you know, your ranged units like this on control group 2, and then you can maybe come and put like your hornets on 3. Obviously, that's just an example. But one of the good things about this is if we come to this control group 0, which you'll remember you now select with the spacebar instead of the all army hotkey, this will now have every single unit that is produced automatically placed within that control group. So what this means is that it essentially will act the same as the all army select, but because it's now an actual control group, you can remove units from that group. So let's say you've got a scout, you send it across the map to maybe just, you know, keep an eye on an expansion positioning or something like that, and you don't want to have to recall it every time you hit the spacebar, you hit the all army hotkey, which I'm definitely perhaps guilty of using a little bit too much. Now all you need to do is click on the scout and then hit Alt and the tilde key, and it will simply remove that scout from this group of units. Any units that you don't want on your all army hotkey can now be removed and indeed placed within its own control group, just so you don't pull any units all the way across the map that you weren't meaning to. Now, coming back into the hotkeys, it gets even better. If you click on the top left here and move from grid to by command, you can now finally change every single key binding for every building, every unit, every ability for all 3 of the races, and that goes for the campaign and all of the co-op heroes here as well. So now you can customize things exactly how you want it to your heart's content. They've also added a pause menu to the game, so just like in other RTSs such as StarCraft, you can pause the game now in a 1 versus 1, for example, and I believe you get 3 pauses, so it's, you know, just like other games, it's not spammable or anything, you can't be obnoxious with it, and I think anybody else can unpause it when they please. They've also revamped the movement a lot here, so flying units in this game are now going to bunch up to attack their target, kind of like how Mutalisks work, I guess, in StarCraft, for example. So beforehand, what they would do is sort of scatter out around the target, and a lot of them couldn't really get to the front line to actually get their shot off. Now they all bunch up, and then if you leave them, they will slowly disperse outwards. And then similarly here, when it comes to ground units, they've had their movement improved a lot as well. Instead of turning on a dime like they did before, which was a little bit jarring, I guess, and unnatural, now they actually have somewhat of an animation to it. It sort of smooths into the turning. It's kind of hard to convey in words, but if you play it, you'll understand, and it feels a lot better. Also, for the replay viewer, they have now implemented vision switching, so you can switch between the vision of yourself and the enemy. Again, nothing really groundbreaking here, but just nice to see, I guess, features that have now become expected from RTS games, more of those coming into Stormgate, so we know they are going to be in there, of course, for that all-important 1.0 release, where people are going to expect this stuff to be there. And in the same vein, we've also got post-game score and graph improvements here. You now even get a little award depending on what you achieved or did the best at in a game. So if you built the most buildings, made the most units, killed the most critters, I don't know, maybe there's one of those in there, you get a little medal and a pat on the back even if you lost. So that's sort of the main meat of this update here. Lots of visual improvements, and then a lot of features that I think have been sorely needed in Stormgate. So it's not been like anything new really, like anything we haven't really experienced before, you know, in other RTS games, but I think they're doing the right thing here. They've narrowed down their scope and they're saying, okay, let's just take what we have already and start to work on polishing that a little bit more and getting it sorted, getting it done, so that we can then start to implement on the game and add additional features that will hopefully make Stormgate stand out a little bit. Of course, we've already heard that there is a big campaign revamp coming, and I think that is honestly one of the most important things they can add to the game. Most players go into an RTS, they play the campaign, and then they think, you know what, I'd like a little bit more, I'm going to go and try 1 versus 1. It doesn't really work the other way around unless you're already somebody who is largely invested in competitive RTS like StarCraft and you're coming over from a game like that. But let's assume you're a brand new player. No, you're probably going to go into co-op, you're going to go into single player first, and if that experience isn't done well, it's not going to attract a lot of players. And then, of course, we've also heard a lot about the faction changes for the Infernals. Alan Dilling, there, the new art director, has been spearheading that movement, so I'm not exactly sure what we're going to get yet. Most of what we've seen so far is concept art, with the exception of a few models in-game, so I'm super stoked to see when that drops and what's going to happen for the other races, what's going to happen for Vanguard and Celestials as well, because I know a lot of people don't like the triangles of the Celestials. So that is going to be super exciting to see that whenever that rolls around, and I will be sure to bring you guys a video on that. So, is this a good time then, given this patch and the new updates to the game, to jump back in Stormgate if you're somebody like me who maybe hasn't played in a few weeks and give it a go again? Well, I think it largely depends what kind of player you are. If you're somebody like me and you don't mind losing a lot, I would say, sure, go for it. The 1 versus 1 at the moment, the state of the ladder in general, is pretty tough. Even though we have seen an increase in players after the patch, it's still not massive. It's only about 100 to 200 people online at any given time, and a lot of these people are already pros at the game or playing at a very high level. A lot of them have come over from StarCraft and maybe are in Diamond, Master and Grandmaster League there. And almost to make matters worse, they've done a full reset of the ladder, so a lot of people that you're running into who are unranked maybe are just insanely good. So, you know, if you're somebody who's pretty bad at the game, it's going to be tough to learn the game. But what I would suggest is just to treat each game as a learning experience. Don't expect to win, you know, don't try hard too much and sweat too much. Just try to enjoy the process of losing, I suppose, and learning how the game works. Because that is one of the coolest things about the meta in Stormgate, is that it is just ever-changing. You know, I stepped away for a month, and I have no bloody clue how Vanguard or the meta in general works anymore, so I'm going to have to study up a bit there. Then again, if you feel like these visual changes aren't enough for you to re-download the game and give it a look again, or at least to keep you playing, I totally understand that as well. Hopefully, though, most people can see that this is a good step in the right direction. Nevertheless, from the developers here, they seem to have a solid grasp and understanding of what the community want from Stormgate, what the community really need from the game. Honestly, I think they've delivered in spades here. So again, looking forward to see what more we get in the future. I really do hope the best for Stormgate, and I hope the best for all of us, for all of our sakes, guys, because we need more RTS games. Alright, I've been waffling on for quite long enough, so I'm going to wrap this one up here. As always, leave me your thoughts down below in the comments, guys. Leave a like down below if you enjoyed the video as well. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date with Stormgate and other RTS games, and I will see you guys in the next video.